Okay, so let's dive into this really powerful idea from Sal Khan. What if the way we've all been taught is, well, fundamentally flawed? He's proposing this huge shift in how we think about learning. Instead of just chasing test scores, we should be aiming for real, true understanding, what he calls mastery. Let's really explore what that means. You know that feeling, right? Where you just decide, I'm not a math person. Or maybe for you it was science or history. It's so common. But Sal Khan argues that this idea of having a math gene or not, it's just not a thing. The real problem, he says, has nothing to do with genetics. So what is it then? Well, it turns out the real issue is these tiny little gaps in our understanding that just start to stack up. I mean, think about it. If you only kinda sorta get pre-algebra, then algebra is gonna be a real struggle, right? And if your algebra foundation is like Swiss cheese, calculus feels absolutely impossible. And that's usually the point where a lot of us just throw our hands up and say, I'm out. Okay, but how do we even get these gaps in the first place? To figure that out, we have to look at the way our traditional school system is set up. And as Sal Khan points out, it's a lot like an old school assembly line. So here's how it usually works, right? We're all grouped together and we all move forward at the exact same pace. You spend a couple of weeks on a topic, then everybody takes a test. And here's the kicker. No matter what you get on that test, the entire class just moves on to the next thing. This system doesn't just allow for these knowledge gaps to happen. It practically guarantees them. It bakes them right into the process. And here's the part that's really kind of crazy. Think about this. Even the A student, the one who gets a 95 on the test, they still have a 5% gap in their knowledge. And what happens next? The next, even harder topic gets built directly on top of that missing 5%. So in a way, the system is designed to leave everyone behind, just a little bit at a time. To really show you how absurd this is, Sal Khan has this brilliant analogy. Imagine, just for a second, if we built houses this way. Okay, so you hire a contractor, and you tell them you've got 2 weeks to build the foundation for my house. After those 2 weeks are up, an inspector comes out, takes a look, and, well, he finds a few problems. He gives the foundation an 80%. That's a C, right? And what do? You say, awesome, a C is passing, let's start building the first floor. Would you ever do that? Of course not. That's insane. But that is exactly what we do in education. We just keep piling more and more knowledge onto these wobbly, incomplete foundations. And then we wonder why, for so many students, the whole thing eventually comes crashing down. All right, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? Well, thankfully, there's a really simple, common sense alternative. It's called mastery-based learning, and it basically flips that whole traditional model right on its head. So here's the core difference, and it's a big one. In our regular model, time is fixed, right? You get 2 weeks. The outcome, though, is all over the place. A's, B's, C's, F's. With mastery learning, you flip that. The outcome is the fixed part. Everyone has to achieve mastery. It's the time that's variable. Some people might get it in a day, some might need a week, but everyone gets there. And this does something so much more important than just teaching a subject. It builds what we call a growth mindset. It completely changes how you think about mistakes. Getting 20% of the questions wrong doesn't mean, oh, I'm a C student. It just means, okay, this is the part I need to work on more. And that simple shift builds grit, it builds perseverance, and it really puts students in the driver's seat of their own learning. Now, this idea isn't actually new. People have been talking about it for like 100 years, but it was always seen as just impractical. I mean, how could one teacher possibly create a personalized path for 30 different students at once? Well, the game changer has been technology. Things like on-demand videos and exercises that adapt to your level. These are the tools that finally make mastery learning a real possibility for everyone. Okay, and this is where the implications get huge. This isn't just about helping a few kids get better grades in algebra. This is about unlocking a massive, totally untapped level of human potential across our whole society. Let's do a little thought experiment. Go back 400 years ago. In Western Europe, which was considered a super literate place for its time, only about 15% of the population could actually read. Now, if you asked an expert back then, they might have said, maybe 20–30% of people are even capable of becoming literate. We know now that's just completely wrong. We know pretty much 100% of the population is capable of learning to read. So that brings us to a really important question for today. What if our current belief, the one that says only a small percentage of people can ever really master something like calculus or become a rocket scientist or contribute to cancer research, what if that belief is just as wrong as that 17th century prediction about literacy? What if it's not a reflection of our potential, but just a result of a broken system that never gave us a solid foundation to begin with? This all leads to a really mind-bending idea for our future. It's about seeing mastery learning not just as a school thing, but as a social necessity, something that could literally flip our whole societal structure upside down. Think about how society was structured for a long time, especially during the industrial age. It was basically a pyramid. At the very bottom, you had this huge base of human labor. In the middle, you had people processing information, the bureaucrats, and then way up at the tiny tip top, you had a small, creative, entrepreneurial class. But here's the thing, we're not in the industrial age anymore. We're in the information age. And automation, computers, AI, they're gobbling up the jobs on those bottom two levels of the pyramid. So that leaves us with a massive question. What does everybody else do? So the big aspirational goal here is to completely invert that pyramid. Instead of a world where only a tiny few get to be the innovators and the creators, the goal is to create a society where that's the base. A huge creative class where almost everyone is empowered to be an artist or a researcher or an entrepreneur. And look, this isn't just some pie-in-the-sky fantasy. It's a vision based on a really simple idea. If we just give people a real path to mastery, human potential is so much bigger than we've ever let ourselves believe. So maybe the question we should be asking isn't, are you a math person? The real question is, what could we all become if we just gave everyone a real chance to learn?